In March of 1993, the Cranberries were touring the UK when their paths intertwined with horrendous international news. On Saturday, March 20th, two makeshift bombs were dropped into metal garbage cans smack dab in the middle of a shopping district in Warrington, Cheshire, a town along the Mersey River in northern England. The explosives were strategically placed for the first to detonate and cause any surviving shoppers to run for safety in the direction of the second, which was timed to go off a minute after the first, as the crowds were running straight for it. Because the garbage bins were cast iron, shrapnel flew in every direction upon detonation, and nearly 60 people were seriously injured. But the worst tragedy of all were the two deaths, one being a 3-year-old named Jonathan Ball, who was there that day with his babysitter shopping for a Mother's Day card. He died at the scene. While the second fatality was that of 12-year-old Tim Perry, who was rushed to hospital, only to die 5 days later when it was found he had nearly no brain activity and his life support machines were pulled. Behind the attacks were the Irish Republican Army, known the world round as simply the IRA, a militia founded on fighting for independent Irish unification, and also a militia which most of the Western world, including Ireland itself, designated as a terror organization. For some background, most of Ireland, known as Southern Ireland, has been an independent nation since it separated from the UK in 1921, following years of conflict in order to do so. It then became the Republic of Ireland. However, 6 counties in the north remained under the banner of the United Kingdom, becoming known as Northern Ireland, and this left some of the population there quite unhappy, to say the least, as they too wanted their freedom from the empire. And as a result, several paramilitary groups developed over the years, including, most notably, the IRA, which sprang up in the late 1960s when a violent period known as the Troubles began, a low-level war that led to the literal segregation of the population of Northern Ireland. Barriers, known as peace walls, were put up, separating those communities loyal to the crown from those seeking Irish independence. But this didn't stop the violence. By the 1990s, bombings and skirmishes were basically commonplace, not only in Northern Ireland, but, at the hands of the IRA, in England as well. Which brings us back to where we began, Warrington, Cheshire, March 20th, 1993. There were a lot of bombs going off in London, Cranberries lead singer Dolores O'Riordan would tell Songwriting magazine in 2017. And I remember this one time a child was killed when a bomb was put in a rubbish bin. We were on a tour bus and I was near the location where it happened, so it really struck me hard. I was quite young, but I remember being devastated about the innocent children being pulled into that kind of thing. In another interview with Vox, she would explain, "I remember seeing one of the mothers on television, just devastated. I felt so sad for her, that she'd carried him for 9 months, been through all the morning sickness, the whole thing, and some prick, some airhead who thought he was making a point did that." Being born in Limerick, Ireland, in the midst of the years of the Troubles, the traumatic event struck extremely close to home in Dolores' heart. However, out of that angst and pain came a work of art in the form of one of the Cranberries' most successful songs, September 1994's Zombie, in which the band temporarily departed from their soft melodic style and dove into a distorted, angry energy in its choruses and bridges, while peppering its verses with the mood of soft yet desperate disillusionment, together culminating in a piece where Dolores vents her rage and sadness at the situation that had been going on in her country since her birth. With the murder of innocent children still freshly reverberating in the forefront of her mind, she began to sing. "Another head hangs lowly, child is slowly taken. And the violence caused such silence. Who are we, mistaken?" As we know, the first 2 lines are about Jonathan Ball, Dolores confirming this in that same 2017 interview by saying, "A child was killed when a bomb was put in a rubbish bin. That's why there's that line in the song, 'A child is slowly taken.' This leaves us with the last 2 somewhat ambiguous lines, and the violence caused such silence, who are we mistaken?" Beginning with the first of those 2, it stands to reason the silence being spoken about is referring to a communication breakdown. That is to say, when the violence erupted between the Loyalists and Republicans in Northern Ireland, it broke down the lines of civil, diplomatic dialogue. The time for talking was over. As for the last line, "Who are we mistaken?" it seems Dolores is questioning her people, the Irish, asking, "Who are we?" As in, is this behavior what we're really about? followed by her opinion that to believe so is to be mistaken. However, to deviate slightly from these explanations, or rather, alter them slightly, it's likely she could be saying that the violence, and the fear it naturally brought with it, has scared us, the Irish, into not speaking out against it, though we're mistaken to stay quiet about it because that's not who we are. This is likely the case, as this interpretation feeds perfectly into the next lines, as Dolores sings, "But you see, it's not me, it's not my family." By which she means, though she's a member of the Irish family, she has nothing to do with any of the inhumanity being perpetrated on either side of the conflict, nor do the majority of her Irish brothers and sisters. As Dolores explained, "I suppose that's why I was saying it's not me, that even though I'm Irish, it wasn't me, I didn't do it. Because being Irish, it was quite hard, especially in the UK when there was so much tension." As far as she was concerned at the time, those committing the atrocities around Northern Ireland and England were psychopaths that were mentally stuck in a time decades ago when the war was still hot. Meanwhile, the rest of the residents of Ireland were trying their best to move on. "In your head," she sings, "in your head they are fighting. With their tanks and their bombs and their bombs and their guns, in your head they are crying." Elaborating in a BBC interview, Dolores would once say, "When it says in the song, 'It's not me, it's not my family,' that's what I'm saying. It's not Ireland, it's some idiots living in the past." She then uses that same "in your head" term as the distortion pedals are stomped and we enter into the chorus, as Dolores screams, in your head, zombie, zombie, zombie." In utter disbelief at their evil activities, she then questions, "What's in your head?" before thrice repeating her vitriolic label of zombie upon them. Now, it should be abundantly clear that this chorus is an admonishment of the utmost degree. It doesn't take much pondering to realize that in folklore, a zombie is a mindless monster whose sole mission is to kill innocent humans. Dolores hurls this slur at her targets again and again, singing it with such passion that her throat grumbles, in effect screaming at them, "What's the matter with you? Killing innocent children? What are you thinking? What's in your head, you brainless zombies?" It's powerfully effective. And then, just as quick as the rage began, the music simmers again, revisiting the soft angst of its first verse, and we enter the second, where she softly sings, "Another mother's breaking heart is taking over. When the violence causes silence, we must be mistaken." This verse should be pretty self-explanatory in light of what we know to be the inspiration for the song in the first place. That is to say, these lines are extensions of the sentiments originally put forward in the first verse about the horrendousness of the death of children in the midst of the Troubles. And so we'll move on to the following stanza, the second pre-chorus, where Dolores sings, "It's the same old theme since 1916. In your head they're still fighting. With their tanks and their bombs and their guns. In your head they are dying." Notice Dolores has mentioned 1916, an important year in Ireland's history. In short, as Britain was wrapped up in the First World War at the time, it left a window open for Irish separatists to start an effective rebellion. It was tamped down in a week's time, but because of the resulting atrocities committed by the British to subdue it, support for Irish independence quickly grew to levels never before seen. Here, Dolores is pinpointing this rebellion, known as the Easter Rising as it took place over Easter, as the beginning of the violence that was still in effect at the time she wrote Zombie. And of course, after this second pre-chorus, we're then hit with another blast of the chorus, where Dolores once again questions the headspace of the brainless zombies who commit such disgraceful atrocities. But it should be noted that it wasn't just the IRA in her sights with these words. The Cranberries played Zombie at Woodstock '94 to a truly massive audience. And during the soft bridge, before the outro of the song, Dolores used the musical break from the vocals to educate the crowd by proclaiming, "This song is our cry against man's inhumanity to man, man's inhumanity to child, and war, and babies dying, and Belfast, and Bosnia, and Rwanda," before the song picked back up. This is important because it highlights that while Zombie was inspired by a specific event and a specific conflict, it isn't just about that conflict. It's a plea for peace and an end to all war, each one being as destructive to plant, animal, and earth as the last, none achieving anything but pain and misery. It doesn't name terrorist groups or organizations, Dolores would tell the NME just after Zombie's release. It doesn't take sides. It's a very human song. 5 years after her tragic 2018 death, her mother, Eileen, would reiterate this sentiment, saying, Dolores was against violence of any kind. Zombie wasn't written as a political song, but as an anti-violence, anti-war song. And now here we are, decades later, with Zombie still very much in the zeitgeist, standing as a reminder to us of not only the ugliness of war and the need for peace, but of a time when we could still turn on the radio and hear songs of substance, songs that said something, that provoked thought, when musicians were artists and art made an impact. And so despite the tragedy it took for its creation, a tragedy we'd trade Zombie back for in a second if it meant that tragedy would never happen in the first place. Despite that, we are nonetheless privileged to have Zombie's example and encouragement to speak out against what we know is wrong. And moreover, we are obligated to take its message with us into the future. Thanks for watching. Please feel free to comment below with what you think Zombie is about and what it means to you, as this video only expresses one interpretation, and all songs are open to as many interpretations as there are people listening to them. But before you do, first enjoy these 5 bonus facts about Zombie by the Cranberries. 1. Released in September 1994 as the lead single to the Cranberries' second album No Need to Argue, Zombie instantly shot to the #1 position on charts around the world, including Billboard's alternative airplay in the US, and today is 2 times platinum in the UK. 2. In March 2003, on the day before the Iraq invasion, the British government and the Independent Television Commission blacklisted Zombie's video from being allowed airplay in the UK, fearing its anti-war message and imagery as troops were deployed to fight in what would become an extremely unpopular and devastating war. The ban was lifted years later when the war came to an end. 3. After the tragic drowning death of Dolores O'Riordan in 2018, Zombie, released 24 years earlier, saw a revival and shot to number 13 on the singles downloads chart in the UK. 4. As of the making of this video, Zombie is streamed an average of over 800,000 times per day and totals nearly 1.2 billion plays on Spotify, making it, by far, the Cranberries' most popular song on the platform. 5. Dolores had to go to bat against the Cranberries' label, Island Records, to have Zombie released as the lead single on No Need to Argue, as the label felt it was too controversial a song to spearhead the album. They even gave her $1 million check to work on another song, which she promptly rejected, and after much back and forth, her principals won the day, and Zombie was released. It then quickly shot the Cranberries to international fame, and to date is the most popular song in their entire catalog. Thanks again for watching. Please leave your comments about what Zombie means to you in the comments section below. Don't forget to like and share this video with those who would find it interesting, and if you haven't yet, subscribe to Lyristoric for more lyrical deep dives and analyses in the future. We'll see you next time.